Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome back or welcome in for another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. In this week's episode, we are going to deep dive into Akashic Records. This is a topic that so many of you have asked about. It's work I love to do, and that was really healing in my own journey. So in just a minute, we are going to dive all the way into understanding Akashic Records, what they are, what they're not, what they can do for you, where they are, lots of frequently asked questions that I'll go through with you. If you are just here for that, feel free to fast forward to when we dive into that topic in just a couple minutes. For those of you that are longtime friends of the pod and part of my Soul Spa community, longtime listeners, or even if you've just been here a few weeks, I wanted to give a little update on me, on my life, just a couple little minute talk here for us. Those of you that are watching on the video version, I'm recording from my office this morning. It's a little bit early in the morning. I'm doing this before clients. I'm still working on my morning coffee, if I'm honest. And please forgive me if I jumble my words a little bit. I have some notes, as always, that I'll be working off of. But some of you have realized that for a couple weeks, I did some best of episodes. I have to tell you, that was really outside of my comfort zone because I really am committed to releasing new content, new talks, new conversations every week. So I'm going to just give you a little update on where I was, what happened. It will be quick. And feel free if you are like, Joy, I'm not interested. It's okay to fast forward, no hard feelings, but so many of you have reached out with support and questions that I just didn't want anyone to worry. So in April, I got kind of sick. I got COVID for what I think is the first time. I also have a bit of a condition that affects my lungs. And so it really put me down and out for like a couple weeks. It was longer than I thought it was going to be. Some of you that are my clients and students know I had to cancel or reschedule lots of appointments. That's something I don't love to do, but I wouldn't want to make anyone sick, first of all. And second of all, I really feel like not only my clients here in the physical, but my clients on the spirit side, it's my duty and it's my heart's desire to be the best and strongest of myself when I do sessions for everyone involved. And so for those reasons, you guys didn't see me for a couple weeks. I'm fine. You probably will hear me still a little froggy in this episode and maybe even in the next couple episodes as I'm recording them. I'm healthy. I'm testing negative. However, because of this adjacent, affected lung condition, it's just seeming to take a little bit longer, as a lot of you know, with these illnesses, taking a little longer to just clear all the way out of my lungs. So just know it's that if you got the insider know, if through these next couple episodes, including this one, if you hear me a little froggy, that is why. Everything is fine. So I just was coming out of the fog of the COVID and being sick and high fevers and all of the bells and whistles, I'll just say it that way. And I started to feel better right at about the 10-day mark. And then a little after the 2-week mark, I was supposed to go see my son, who is currently on the East Coast. And I did. I was better. The doctors had said it's been well over the 10-day period of quarantine, which I, of course, did. I think I quarantined for more than 2 weeks to just because I needed to. So I was well past that period. I did fly back east. I did get to visit him, and it really took it out of me, to be quite honest. I flew out on a red eye from San Diego to East Coast, which, if I'm really honest, maybe I'm getting a little old for, or maybe my system just needs a certain type of sleep and rest that wasn't going to provide. So that is what happened there. That is why there were a couple of best of episodes. I hope you guys got to check out the best of episodes. Some of them, one of them was from like very, very early on in the podcast, and like I think we started late 2022, so 2023. And Travis, that conversation's near and dear to my heart. He's doing wonderful things if you're following him. So that is the update on me. I'm healthy and well and really behind and just trying to get back in the flow of everything, writing the episodes and other things. I've got some things on the horizon that I'm really excited about that I've been working hard on for a long time. Plus, I am also sometimes doing interviews on other people's podcasts. So if you are on my socials at Joyful Medium, on Instagram is kind of my favorite right now, but I'm also on Facebook and TikTok. I try to post those other things that I participate in too. So if you ever want to see those are there. The best way to keep up with everything I'm doing, because those of you that are on my email list knew that I was sick, because I kind of said like, hey, I'm under the weather, guys. This is what's happening. So if you feel like, hey, I want to know a little bit more about what's going on, I want to be first to get the updates, make sure you're on my mailing list. You can get on there at joyfulmedium.com. There is on the homepage that sign magnet mini course, which you can just put your name in there. You'll get access to that free course, and you will get on my email list for the free community healings and all the things that we do. You can also email admin@joyfulmedium.com if you want to be added to the list and you can't figure out how, and I can get you on there myself. So those are the updates. That is what is happening with me. Lots of busyness, lots of wonderful things happening, feeling better and feeling much more like myself. I am still maybe a little lingering tired, like exhausted in ways that I'm kind of over, if I'm honest. But I'm ready for summer, and I hope that you are too. If you are one of our listeners in the Southern Hemisphere and you're in Australia, New Zealand, I know you guys are really tipping into the thick of winter, so I'll try not to summer all over you too much. So that is what is up with me. Now you are also in the know. Everything is fine. I'm plugging along, and I'm excited to do this Akashic Records episode. I've actually been working on this for quite a while, and sometimes you hear me say, oh, if there's a topic you want to hear about, or, send your questions for the Ask a Medium Anything episode. Sometimes, like is the case with the Akashic Records, I'll notice just several questions coming about the same topic. And those I sort of save in one bucket or one folder so that I could make a whole episode on one topic. And that is why we are having the Akashic Records section today. So really, I like to think of the Akashic Records as part scribe, part soul library, part sacred album of our life, of all of our lives, right? So that's essentially what the Akashic Records are. They're often described as like an energetic archive, a vibrational library that contains the soul level history of every being, every thought, every word, every action, every intention across time, space, dimension, and reality. So imagine it like a cloud of the universe, right? A spiritual database and a complete memory bank of your eternal soul. I know we talk about this a lot here, but we are souls having a human experience. Our soul exists before our physical body and continues on after our physical body. As many of you know at this point, that is what evidential mediumship aims to prove, is that our soul continues on, and that is why our loved ones are able to communicate. Well, the Akashic Records is just what it sounds like. A record house or a library, a database, a cloud memory bank of all of your life in this lifetime, in past lives, present circumstances, future possibilities. They're all stored there, tended to, and can be accessed for insight, for healing, for growth. So that's in a nutshell what the Akashic Library is, or the Akashic Records. You'll hear them called different things, but usually the word Akashic or Akasha is in there somewhere. Where is this mystical soul library located? Okay. Often you'll hear the question, like, is the Akashic Records, like, are the Akashic Records figurative or literal? I think they're literal. I just think sometimes our human understanding, especially maybe like 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, was very on 3D reality, focused on tangible 3D reality. And now that we, each of us pretty much, I would say most of us, right, are using some version of like cloud storage, or I think we all joke about the cloud, and we have photos in the cloud and we don't know where the cloud is or how to access it. So at least it does lend itself to starting to expand our mind about, okay, well, now we're starting to understand how things can be stored non-physically, data, information, right? In many traditions, the Akashic Records are said to exist in a non-physical dimension and are accessed through meditation or altered state of consciousness. We're going to talk more about how to access them later on. Don't you worry. They hold like the blueprint of your soul's journey. They offer guidance, not just about who you've been, but about what your soul wants to express in this lifetime and who you're becoming. So imagine walking into a vast sacred library, and you can visualize or imagine your personal Akashic library however you want. But each lifetime of your soul has, for example, its own section. Maybe it's its own wing in your library, maybe it's its own aisle, its own series of books. And each chapter, each line that's written is capturing a part of your expression, a part of that unique lifetime, a lesson, a relationship, a misunderstanding, perhaps, a turning point. And when you open to a proverbial page in a book in your library, you don't just read about it, you feel it. You will often remember who you were or remember elements of that lifetime or that experience, even if it's in this lifetime. And sometimes we can get more aligned or more clear with who we are becoming or who we want to become, who we desire to become, right? But for me, excuse me, I'm getting a little froggy, like I said. For me, I don't think of it as a physical place, even though when I visit there in meditation, in more of like psychic experience, I do visualize it for myself as a place, but technically it's not a place, right? Because it's not tangible in a way that we think of on our earth plane in 3D reality. It's not like we each have a private library that we can physically go to here, but you can energetically go there with your non-physical, like your astral body, your psychic sensing. So I really think of it as not necessarily a physical place, but almost like the cloud. And to be honest, I think you guys know I don't fully understand the cloud either. Think of the Akashic Records like almost like a cosmic, like Google Drive, always updating, constantly saving, and deeply personalized. Except instead of like spreadsheets and PDFs, it holds your soul contracts, your karmic patterns, lessons you've learned in the past, lessons you're working on, agreements, the energetic imprint of every choice you've ever made and every path you could have taken, every path you did take, and perhaps even some wisdom for the future. So I hope that helps you understand kind of where they are, so to speak, and if they're real or symbolic. The next, like, frequently asked question about Akashic Records is, does everyone have Akashic Records? For me, the answer is yes. We have a soul and we have data about what has happened, you know, our lived experience, our physical experience, our psychic experiences, all those dreams that we forgot about or never could remember. We all have so much to us. Where does that go? Does it just disappear? No. Our soul has that information. Our Akashic Records have that information. Everyone has Akashic Records, as far as I understand it. Who or what is your Akashic Records guide, and how do they help? Did you know that you have an Akashic Records guide? maybe let's start there. So I know that we've talked on other episodes. If you missed that episode about spirit guides, it wasn't long ago. It was just a handful of episodes ago. I highly encourage you to go back and really understand spirit guides, your spirit team, how all of that works. Your Akashic Record keeper is often what they're called, your record keeper, or your librarian, as I've sometimes heard it called, your Akashic guide. There's lots of, as you guys know, there's lots of nuance with the language and different people use different words. But your Akashic record keeper or record guide is on your team of guides and inspirers. For me, my Akashic record guide is perhaps less interactive with me, my human personality, in a direct way. But I've had many times of going to visit my Akashic Records, particularly in my early few years of development. I really learned heavily about Akashic Records. And so when I go energetically to visit my Akashic Record house, when I move my awareness there, and when I have something I'm there to learn, to experience, to grow from, whatever it is I happen to need at that time, that is when I interface or engage with my Akashic Record keeper. And typically my guide, my record guide, is the one that is I'm going to just be really honest, even though it's probably not going to make sense to everyone. The way I do it is I kind of go into, like I said, I imagine a library. I kind of know what it looks like in my mind. And I go and sit at this one table, and my guide brings me what I need and unfolds it in front of me. And then I can move into an experience about that past lifetime. That sometimes it's like, if you're struggling is maybe not the right word, but if you know you're working on one thing, I'm going to give you a couple of specific examples in just a minute. But like if there's just a theme or something you've been kind of wrestling with or something you're trying to grow through, perhaps, and often we have seen this theme either before in this lifetime or other lifetimes, and there's more information we could perhaps know about it. We could have some healing around it. So those are the types of things that I would go to my Akashic Record house for. We're going to really dive into that in just a second. But I kind of enter, and there's this kind of table thing that I sit at, and then my guide brings me the different books and unfolds them, and then I go into an experience and have an experience. So your Akashic Record Guide is really the one that is constantly updating your cloud, making sure that everything is ordered, that everything is contained for you. It's just like any guide, they're there to support you and help you, on behalf of your soul, because when we all return to non-physical, of course, we're going to want to understand this lifetime and how it relates to other lifetimes, and we get a different overview, right? Almost like if you think about, if you've ever watched, whether it's Star Wars for some of us, or whether it's Harry Potter, whatever it is you like. If you've ever watched a long series of movies that takes place over many, many years, you can think of it like, of course, you'd want to see and experience and understand those very deep lessons and connections in your life. It's all in your record house, and your record keeper guide is part of the documentation, the updating. As we talk about this next part, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the guide, because I want to talk to you about like what is housed in your records. Now, we've talked some about, yes, of course, the memories of your life, memories of past lives, but also your thoughts, your actions. Sometimes we could rewatch a situation, right? Maybe you had an argument, a disagreement with someone in your life at some point in your life. And if this version of you now today got to see a movie of that interaction, that disagreement, you would see what was happening, you would hear the words, but you might not remember what actually you were thinking in that moment. You might not remember the feelings, right? Maybe in the movie of it, you look angry, you look frustrated, you're arguing, but maybe the truth of how you felt in that moment is deeply hurt, or deeply confused, or maybe motivated. Maybe you were silently making some decisions. All of that is in your records. So it's not just what's seen, it's what's unseen. It's not just what's said, it's what's unsaid, what's thought, what's felt, potentials and possibilities, all of the lessons that you learned in your lifetime. Some of you know, this is a little bit of a sticking point for me. I don't necessarily, sometimes the way I hear people talk about lessons and lessons we learn in our life sounds like a punishment, kind of old version of like a karmic understanding. I think we just all learn lessons all the time. I think we're here to learn. I think it's one of the things we do here. I think some of the lessons perhaps we knew were going to be a part of our journey. Others maybe we didn't foresee. So lessons is definitely in the Akashic Records. Soul contracts. So for example, the parents that we chose to come in with, some of the things that we might have chosen to experience. You may have heard me joke about this before. That meeting, that this is again from that spirit guide episode, the meeting that we have before we come into this incarnation, where we're choosing our guides and we're choosing some of the elements and we're understanding the blueprint of our soul in this lifetime. I also think that we make some contracts and some agreements, right? Perhaps I agree to show up in your life at some point for some reason, right? So all of those things, contracts, agreements, things we don't agree to, all of that is in our Akashic Records. And the way I was initially trained, we can work on those things. We can update our contracts. We can complete agreements. We can kind of pass go and collect our 200 points or whatever it is. So all of that is also included in the record house, and your guide manages all of that. Sometimes I think of them as like part librarian, part attorney, but like the best and wisest of knowing all of your information at a moment's notice. Now with the really revolution of AI being so accessible to so many of us, it's kind of helping me rethink some of this, or reimagine how maybe in some ways I think very literal about these things just in my own mind, or the way I imagine them, or the way I envision them. But now that we understand like what AI can do, and how you can ask AI to look up something for you and it can bring you so much information, we can understand just, I think, a sliver of the potential of our Akashic guides that way. And I believe that all of our potentials and possibilities are also housed in some way, meaning we have the qualities that we have the capabilities that we have. Some of them we might fully express in this lifetime, some of them we might not. Maybe there's not enough time to express all the things that we could with our soul's ability. Um, and I think the potentials of the directions that we could go. I'm sure that you have gifts and talents right now that you just don't have time to use. I love, for example, painting and crafting and refinishing furniture. Sometimes I have time to do it and sometimes I don't. But perhaps if I made some different choices, not better or worse, but just different, maybe I would be doing that as my primary work rather than mediumship and spiritual counseling and coaching. So I think also the potentials of the other options of things we could have done or possibilities or choices we could have made. I think all of that is contained there too, because I definitely would want to know that. And I can't see why, why all of that wouldn't be documented. So those are some of the things housed in our Akashic records. I really feel like the Akashic records are helpful rather than this place we have to visit or information we have to have. There are ways that the Akashic records can help us, which we're going to talk about now. Excuse me again. And we're also going to talk about what are the benefits of accessing the Akashic records. But first, I just want to float this out there to you. Sometimes people get very black and white, even with these psychic or energetic tools, right? Do you have to visit your Akashic records? No. Do you have to know about them? No. Do you have to worry about them? No. Will anything happen if you never ever even dabble or are curious to learn? No. These things are going on behind the scenes on our behalf for our highest and greatest good. It's just another tool. So just like the Enneagram is a tool to understand more about our personality and our expression, just how, understanding our intuition is a tool that we can use to really help us in this lifetime. The Akashic Records is just another tool, just like some people want to work with their spirit guides and some people don't. It's very similar to that. It's just an option. It's not something you have to choose to do. Nothing bad will happen if you don't. So I like to throw that out there. Just, you guys know, I sometimes have been perhaps a little bit of an overachiever in my lifetime, or someone that feels like, oh my gosh, I have to do all the things. So just for those of you that might feel stressed out, you don't have to do it. If it doesn't fit for you, if it doesn't fit for you right now, you could do it 30 years from now if you felt like it. So how can the Akashic records help you, and what might be some of the benefits if you chose to access your records? Healing, I think, is really the main foundational, like most important piece, because the records are not going to tell us the future, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But really, anytime we're receiving psychic information about our own soul, information about even maybe things that we've grown through already in however much life we've had in this lifetime. We've been through things, we've seen things, we've grown through things, we've had hard things, we've had wonderful things, we've had things that we've surmounted, right? And I think it can all be part of our healing, just another tool for healing. It can be part of our growth to help understand, oh, okay, this pattern that I've been experiencing, I now can better understand it. I now can see how it shows up. I now can see that I have a different choice available to me here. Just for an example, I really think it can also be used as a tool to really help us understand ourselves better, ourselves as a soul, ourselves as a part of this human community, right? And perhaps it can help us understand other people in our lives a little bit more. And part of this healing that I really believe the Akashic Records is for is our own empowerment in this lifetime. It's not to, for me, this intertwines a little bit with the past life work. And I know sometimes in past life work, one of the criticisms is like, well, everybody was an Egyptian pharaoh or queen. Everybody was, you know what I mean? How could everybody possibly be, I don't know, these famous figures, right? But it's not really like that. It's more about understanding things you've grown through, things that are potential for you, and your value intrinsically as a soul in this human experience, and letting that empower you, letting the truth of who you are empower you. It's not really about somehow feeling better because of something that happened or didn't happen in a past life, but using that information to help strengthen you, help you have clarity, help you have understanding, help empower you to make choices that you want to make for things you want to experience in this lifetime. Can the Akashic Records help you understand your life's purpose in this lifetime? Yes, but it's probably not what you think. So I want to dive into this a little bit. Early in my work, one of the things I was hoping to understand from the Akashic Records is this idea of like, what's my purpose? I want to fulfill my purpose. I had been starting in Reiki training, as many of you know. I was already working in wellness. I was technically already a holistic health practitioner by licensure. I had many years of study of kinesiology and the physical body and massage therapy and movement and all of that, and was now combining it with understanding energetics, understanding my intuition, my subtle sensing gifts. And so Akashic Records just came up as part of what my initial mentor was teaching me. And I'm so grateful for it. But one of the things I kind of secretly wanted to know was like, what's my life purpose here? It didn't feel like it was going to be massage therapy forever. The psychic work just kind of felt far away from me, almost like, well, I don't really think that's what I'm going to be doing. It feels different than that to me. My mentor was telling me, you're meant to be a teacher in some capacity. I have been told that a lot over the course of my life, and didn't love it any of the times I heard it. It didn't make any sense to me. I couldn't imagine standing in front of a classroom teaching. But again, I was thinking in too much of a traditional sense. And I really also wanted to understand some of the patterns I had in the initial part of my training. I'd already been through several really hard relationships in my life. And it seemed like I kept attracting or drawing or agreeing to be in relationships with like not good people, and it wasn't my intention, where I would see the best of them when I started to engage in relationship, and then ultimately a lot of the time something would happen where I would become submissive, that person would become overpowering of me, and it was just a strange dynamic. It was in partnerships, it was in friendships, it was in work relationships. It wasn't with everybody, but enough people that it was noticeable to me. So one of the things my initial mentor helped me do was go into the Akashic Records many times. She taught me how to do it. She guided me in experiences doing it. And one of the most profound things that I learned, there's a couple. I'm going to try to give you the Cliff Notes version because it'd probably take me a whole extra hour of this episode to really expand on these experiences. One of the things I learned was that I had actually abused power in a previous lifetime. And so I had made, unconscious to my like literal mind, I'd made agreements to not let myself be as powerful, to be more submissive, to draw relationships that would teach me how to use my power in a way that was healthy, in a way that was not abusive to myself or others. So that was one of the, it's not really a carryover lesson. I don't know if I believe in it that way, but it's one of the things my soul was trying to learn. It's one of the agreements that I made. So I was able to, with the help of my mentor, go in and sort of change some of those agreements and understand that I learned some of these lessons and I don't want to learn this in the same way anymore. And I'm going to choose intentionally, through not just updating the records in the Akashic Record House, but through learning about myself, my choices, my behavior in the real 3D world as well. We're responsible for choices we make here. None of this is a magic wand. You guys hear me say that a lot. So what I learned about my purpose in this lifetime that I wanted to know was that my purpose really was to be in community with others. And a lot of us, as sometimes introverts that can kind of put on the extrovert face when we need to, I don't love being in community. And I have learned in this lifetime that a lot of times I tend to be like elected team captain of the project when I don't necessarily want to be. So I had to learn how to not take it all on my own, how to ask for help from other people, how to allow other people in enough to help me in ways that were safe and trustable, and not just with maybe like the wrong people or people who wanted to take advantage. All of this I really was able to unfold through profound experiences in the Akashic Records. And that's why I'm saying, maybe some of you are rolling your eyes saying, Joy, you could have totally learned this through a different type of therapy or through reading. I tried all of that and it just wasn't getting me to where I needed. So this tool at that time really served me. And that's the best way I think to use it, is different tools for different times, reasons, seasons, etc. But one of the other things I came to understand was that I was a soul having a human experience, was that I had permission to express these other elements of myself, was that I didn't have to worry about making everything I studied or everything I undertook a career, that it wasn't a waste of time to explore these expressions of my soul, that the relationships in my life that I was choosing and not choosing were part of the most important thing my soul wanted to experience in this lifetime. So that's why I'm saying, yes, the Akashic Records can help us understand our life purpose, but it's probably not what you think. An added layer to this that I've come to know largely through mediumship and my training there is that we have these core qualities that we come in with in this lifetime, right? The core qualities of your soul. Maybe you're a helper, maybe you're a humanitarian, maybe you're a nurturer. And there's usually several qualities for each of us. As long as our soul, us, right? Our soul living in us as us, as long as we're expressing those qualities in some area of our life. It doesn't even have to be your primary job. It could be a hobby, it could be volunteer, it could be just a part of you. As long as we're expressing those qualities, our soul will be satisfied, and that's our purpose, right? It's why sometimes you'll see someone that is like an engineer in their career, but they really love like bird watching or communing with nature or organizing hiking groups, for example. That's probably one of the truer callings of their soul, and they just need to express it in some area. But often that left brain engineering mind is part of that humanitarian effort that they need to make. It's just expressed through their faculties in a way that is unique and genuine to them, maybe through mathematics for some people, maybe through volunteering for humanitarian aid with others. So it doesn't necessarily, like, while yes, we want to choose things that resonate with us, that call to us, that we feel like we want to explore, it doesn't have to be the same for everybody. And your soul might be equally as satisfied being a do you guys have Habitat for Humanity? Do you know what that is? Like where they go and build houses and safe water, clean water for other people. You might be equally satisfied doing that as you would be, being a commercial builder of houses who does some charity work, helping families get into, get out of homelessness or unhousedness or whatever the word is right now. Both of those things, even though they're vastly different, can fulfill what our soul wants to experience and express in this lifetime. I hope that makes sense. This kind of leads right into my next question. Does the Akashic Record house or your Akashic Records hold your future? I would say yes, in that the Akashic Records are also connected to like a divine wisdom and intelligence. So the Akashic Records has an understanding of all of the potentials and possibilities for you in this lifetime, the exponential potentials. However, the records and the record guide, they do not choose for you which of these potentials you go towards in this lifetime. So I often think of it as like in any situation, as I'm recording this, we have Mother's Day weekend coming up and Father's Day weekend just around the corner. Um, as as we move towards these like special days, right? There's an exponential amount of potentials of what could happen on any given weekend, right? The Akashic Record knows all of the potentials, knows all of the potentials of your soul, the interactions, the paths you could cross, the forks you could choose in the road, all the different options for how that day could go, that exponential potential. But it doesn't choose for you which of those options, which of those paths, which way you drive to work today, what you choose to have for lunch. Do you order in? Do you go to the place and maybe encounter this person who can help you get to this next thing that you want to do? The Akashic Records doesn't control any of that or manipulate any of that. It just documents it. So does it know your future? Yes, in the way that it's connected to divine intelligence and knows all of the exponential potentials for your future. But no, in that it hasn't been chosen for you yet. So as you make choices, additional paths unfold, additional potentials open up, exponential opportunities are available. And then as we choose, our choices are documented. Yes, the other potentials are documented, but we can only choose often like one thing at one. We can only be one place at one time most of the time, right? So I hope that makes sense of like how kind of it does hold the future, but also not exactly, in a way that the Akashic Records is definitely not going to give you the future or tell you your future, because it's not decided for you yet. We are deciding our future through the choices, actions, inactions that we make day to day right now in our lifetime. This is an interesting question. It's not totally uncommon, believe it or not. Is it safe to access the Akashic Records? It is safe. They belong to you. It's all about you. It's your soul's information. It's totally safe. You can't do any harm. You can't break anything. And except for learning and growing and healing and expressing ourselves, you really can't necessarily quote unquote change anything. I mean, things are changing and updating as we make choices. Even as you're listening to this and getting this information, your records are updating about it. So there's nothing harmful we can do in there. And again, you don't need to do it. Can anyone access the Akashic Records, or do you need special abilities? I believe anyone can access the records. I believe we all have the ability to access the records, just like we all have the ability to use our intuition. So I don't think someone needs special abilities necessarily, like other than those abilities that we all naturally have, whether we choose to develop them or not. But I do believe that it helps to, at least initially, either work with or train with someone that understands how to use the records, someone that's not fear-based. And we're also going to talk right now about how are some of the ways you could access the records if you are so inclined. I was trained to do it and typically do it through a meditative experience, or a kind of like a mind journey, sometimes they're called, but like in a more meditative state. That is how I teach it. That is how I lead clients through it. I don't do this with everyone. Some people I'll work it in private coaching over like a series of sessions. Some of my students have done this work with me. I don't teach it at like a very beginner level. And the reason why is because I feel like two things. Sometimes our human nature is to want to put the power with things outside of ourselves, right? And truly, we have our own answers. So I like people to have some ability to like work with or understand their own intuition, their own energy before they tip into this work. It's just the way I think it works better for people. And I also believe it's very helpful for someone to be able to hold meditation for a certain degree, just to really be able to spend time having a profound experience. A mentor can teach you this or walk you through it or give you tools and steps and instructions for how to practice it. Just like all of this work, it's a practice. It's not a light switch that's like one and done. It's a practice. It's very subtle. The experiences are very subtle. Sometimes for some people, they continue to unfold over several days and weeks, meaning like you continue to get more understanding, more knowledge continues to drop in, more of the like dot connecting of like, oh yeah, I didn't realize I've been doing that since I was a kid, or like, oh, that's happened so many times. I didn't even connect those dots. So that kind of thing can happen for people. Some people like to access the records with someone who's experienced in more of like a hypnotherapy or a hypnosis that's also experienced with the Akashic Records. We've had a couple of hypnotherapists or trained expert hypnotists on our pod before, so look for those episodes. There are teachers who only work with the Akashic Records and really specialize in training people in that. We've had Josephine Hardman is great for that in her podcast. That's deeper in some of the old episodes. You can check that out. You can also really just start practicing inviting that Akashic Record guide in. If you revisit that guide episode, if you don't remember the exercise I gave there, it's very similar, just starting to build a relationship with that Akashic Record guide. And I like to go in with a very open-hearted, open-ended kind of like, what can I know, or what information can I have, rather than direct questions. I find direct questions are often like incredibly limiting. Like, what am I supposed to do? It's like, well, you're not necessarily supposed to do anything. Like, there's lots of things that you can enjoy and are supposed to do, right? So I really find just wanting to really absorb and understand information, or what can I know about this pattern? I've known some people who are working with some layer of like an addiction or a habit they can't seem to break. And they'll go in with the question or the open-hearted intention of like, what else can I know about this? What else can I know about this addiction or this struggle to make healthy choices for me? So see how that's like a little bit more open-ended. That's how I typically like to approach getting information from the records. But anyone can have the ability to do it. It does help if you've got some experience with meditation or understanding a little bit of how your senses work, your subtle senses, your ability to visualize, your ability to feel, your ability to let knowing or just information kind of drop in or meander in, I guess, depending on how your system works. So I really like to do this over a series of coaching sessions. If I'm working one-on-one with someone or with my advanced level students, over a series of sessions, they'll do this with me just because it can be so easy to second guess. It can be so easy to doubt, but there are lots of ways to access your Akashic records. Some people like to do it through practicing automatic writing after building a relationship with that Akashic record guide, and then inviting that guide in, kind of floating their intention or general, what could I know? And then doing some automatic writing and just seeing what comes out about themselves, about whatever the subject or topic is that they're wondering about in that moment. So there's lots of ways to access the Akashic records, and the Akashic records knows about you all the time. Even if you feel like it's far away, it's not, because it's constantly updating with every thought, movement, intention, idea, path that crosses, etc. So anyone can access the Akashic records. I do occasionally do it with people who, like I said, in private coaching sessions or students. There are other practitioners that can either guide you in an Akashic record journey in the way I do it so you can have an experience, or some people just do readings. There are practitioners out there, it's not the way I work, but there are practitioners out there that will do a reading for you and tell you about your Akashic records. I tend to like people to have a little bit more of their own experience just because that was so profound for me. But there's, just like everything, there's lots of different ways to do it. You could consider someone who has experience with the Akashic records that's a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist. You can work in meditation space. There are lots of guided meditations and experiences to take you energetically towards the Akashic records and let you have an experience. There are people that do readings about it. So there's lots of ways to access it. It is available to everyone. There is a lot of healing and growth and deeper understanding we can have about ourselves, but it doesn't take away our need to make choices. It doesn't give us all the answers so that, like, almost like someone's giving you cheat codes on a test. It's not like that. It's not a test like that in this lifetime. It's about us having experiences and growing and expanding and being in community. So those things are always going to be a part of what we're doing. And there is no magic wand that's going to give you like a sorting hat that's going to give you a magic answer about every choice you're making in your life. It just doesn't work like that. But the Akashic records can be a really profound tool or place or way of learning, growing, and expanding. So let me know your thoughts about the Akashic records. Is this work that you've ever dabbled in? Is this something that you have been curious about? Is this something that you would like me to think about doing like an 8-week class about, and so you could learn more about it? Let me know your thoughts. You can always email admin@joyfulmedium.com. And I hope that you have enjoyed this little talk about the Akashic records. And I hope it's really kind of expanded your mind about understanding your record library, your Akashic guide, and what might be possible for you, or even maybe things you've experienced in past lives that have helped to color who you are today, or the way you make your choices, or why you make your choices, or even younger versions of you in this lifetime. It's all a part of this work. So I hope that this has been interesting for you. I hope that you are a little bit resting assured that I am back in action and not abandoning anyone and not going anywhere. And we've got some great conversations coming up with some amazing souls just around the corner. I don't want to give any spoilers, but there are a couple conversations long awaited. And I've mentioned this before, but if there are topics you want to hear about, we've got another Ask a Medium Anything episode just on the horizon. So if you want to submit questions for that, it's not too late. admin@joyfulmedium.com. And I am just so grateful to have you here as a part of the community. Again, connections and community is a really big part of our soul's journeys as individuals and as collectives in this lifetime. And I'm so grateful to consider you a part of my community. Big hugs, lots of love. I'm wishing you wellness and health and good rest and all of the things. And please know I'm focusing on those for myself as well. Big hugs, lots of love, and bye for now from inside Spirit Speakeasy.